when she gets to the tent, the students of Mengo are going to lead us in the anthems, and they are ready to do that. We are honored to have the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports joining us at this very important occasion. Can we have the anthems? Those drumming could pause a bit, and we have the anthems. Mengo SS, lead us in the anthems. Ladies and gentlemen, can I now invite Bishop Luele, who is going to lead us in a word of prayer.
Shall we pray? We are standing here on behalf of the rest of the Interreligious Council to show our support to all that you are doing, the agencies represented here, and the First Lady Mama. We represent the rest who are unable to be with us today, but we are coming in solidarity to the efforts which we greatly appreciate by all these agencies, the Ministry of Education and Gender, and the rest of government. Father, we stand here today to appreciate you so much. Opportunities like this that we can come together to discuss our corporate responsibility to our young people. Thank you so much for the agencies that are represented here, the ambassadors, and the various agencies that are standing with us as a nation to handle these major issues. Some of them are crises that we are facing of young people, particularly young girls who got impregnated through the difficult time of COVID, but also many others, all adolescents, Lord, that we find ourselves helpless. We are asking your wisdom and your grace. We pray, Lord our God, that the discussions that will take place today, the speeches that we will hear, Lord our God, will contribute towards the solution that you have for this nation, especially for the youth. Lord, we are praying that all these agencies that are here, especially the people that are represented and they are representing, we pray that you bless each one of them. We want to thank them for their commitment to help us as a nation, to love us and to care for our children. Thank you for the President. Thank you for the First Lady, whom you've given a heart to care for the children of this country. We pray, Lord, that you give her the strength that she needs, the wisdom that she needs, and all the support that she needs from you. Everything that we do, we entirely depend on you. So we are praying in a special way for her, Lord our God, that you give her that wisdom. Just as she leads the Ministry of Education, Lord, we pray that she will rally Ugandans towards this cause, and you give us the solutions that we do not have. Thank you, Father. Help us this time that will generate consensus on the way forward. Bless this day. May your presence be with us in the person of the Holy Spirit, that everything that we do will bring glory to your name. We have prayed all this believing in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Amen.
Our chief guest this afternoon, the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, Mama Janet Museveni, honorable ministers here present, excellencies, ambassadors, heads of mission, honorable members of parliament present, religious leaders, our partners, representatives of the civil society, the host school, the leadership, the head teacher of Mengo Senior Secondary School, students, all of you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to this important event where Mama the First Lady is here to launch the Education Plus initiative in Uganda, an initiative that is being supported by mainly representatives of the UN family. And I should emphasize, Mama, that the UN resident coordinator who heads that family, Madame Susan Namondo, is here. I didn't mention her specifically in the protocol list. And these agencies, UNAIDS, UNFPA, UN Women, UNICEF, and UNESCO, came up with this idea sometime last year to launch an Education Plus initiative, and we are honored to have none other than yourself, Mother of the Nation, to launch this initiative. I will be letting you know about the distinguished personalities in our midst, but let me at this juncture invite the head teacher of Mengo Senior Secondary School, Mr. Grace Nantaja Sebanakita, to welcome you to Mengo on behalf of the family of Mengo School. Welcome, Mr. Sebanakita.
Lady Mama Janet Museveni, the Minister of Education and Sports, and also the UN champion of adolescent girls, honorable ministers, the UN resident coordinator for Uganda, Her Excellency Susan Ngoji Namondo, Your Excellencies the ambassadors and diplomatic corps, religious leaders present, members of parliament, civil society representatives, school administrators, adolescent girls and young women, praise be to God.
Amen.
On behalf of the Board of Governors, PTA and students, I warmly welcome you to Mengo Senior School. It's a Church of Uganda school founded and owned by Namirembe Diocese, but funded by the government of Uganda. Mengo Senior School was founded in 1895, and we celebrate over a century of excellency and existence. We are 127 years. Mengo Senior School is a comprehensive mixed-day school which has both academic and vocational disciplines. It has a population of 5,372 learners, with a ratio of 3 to 2 boys. 3 boys to 2 girls. We have 200 teachers, 35 technical staff, and 52 support staff. Our vision is to be at the helm of producing competent human resource to serve the church, the state, and the world. Our mission is to provide quality education through practical skills, teamwork, self-reliance, and God-fearing persons. Our core values: the fear of God, the respect for persons and property, and integrity. Dear guests, I thank you for choosing Mengo Senior School to host this very important event in the life of an adolescent girl child in school. And as Mengo School, we pledge our unwavering support to this initiative. We believe that God has given us an opportunity to nurture a big population of the youth. As he says in Exodus 2:9. Take this child and nurse him for me, and I'll pay you. It is always our hope and prayer that we impact their lives, as clearly stated in our mandate, which is to provide quality education through practical skills, teamwork, self-reliance, and produce God-fearing persons. Through our education system, and with a newly introduced competence-based curriculum, we are committed to providing the type of education that trains the head, the heart, and the hand to be able to bring out a child with core skills that can be universally applied to enhance ways of critical thinking, learning, working, and living the world we now see as a global village. I warmly welcome you once again and pray that we stand for this great cause. Our theme this year as school comes from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 6. Observe the commands of the Lord our God, walking in his ways and revering him. In our spirit of Akwana Chirayomba, I am Nantaja Grace, the head teacher of Mengo Senior School. Mama standing beside me are the deputy teachers of the school. Madame Bareche Kichoncho, she's in charge of human resource and plant. Mrs. Agatha Senyonjo, she's our deputy academics. Mrs. Chigun Doroth, she's our public relations deputy and the face of Mengo. And Mr. Sekayala is the deputy in charge of finance. We thank you so much, Mama, for visiting us.
Thank you, the head teacher. I've been advised that since most of us, if not all of us here, have been vaccinated against COVID, for purposes of better projection of our voices, we will have to remove the masks when we are presenting, and then we can put them thereafter. And I will demonstrate how to do it. Mama, once again, you're most welcome. Just to let you know that within our midst, Honorable Ministers Kabuye Chofa Togabye, who is the Minister of State under Kampala State Council, Office of the President, State Council Authority. He oversees that area. We have Honorable Sarah Nyirabasiki Mateke, who is the Minister of State in charge of Youth and Children Affairs. We have Excellencies, Ambassadors, and I'll recognize these by their titles. I was cautioned I should not bite my tongue in the process of trying to introduce all of them by name. We have the Ambassador of USA, United States of America. That one is easy. Natalie Brown. I cannot bite my tongue. There is the Ambassador of European Union, the Ambassador of Ireland. Some of them will be talking to us. We have a representative of the Ambassador of Sweden. We have the heads of the UN agencies. I thought, if you don't mind, because Mom already knows many of you, you would just stand up and wave to her. The representatives of the UN agencies. I mentioned that family led by the UN resident coordinator, Susan Namondo. The rest, the reps can also stand up. UNICEF, I've seen you, UNFPA, and all the other agencies. Mama, in addition, we have the regional director for UN-AIDS in our midst. And we have a delegation that is come here to pick lessons from the wonderful work that you personally, government of Uganda and the Minister of Education and all the partners have been doing. We have a delegation from Namibia. Can that delegation stand up for recognition? We also have a delegation from Eswatini. You are most welcome. Of course, you saw the team from the Interreligious Council of Uganda. They were here to lead us in prayer. The Director General, Uganda AIDS Commission, civil society organization representatives, and of course that big family of Mengo Senior School in our midst. All of you ladies and gentlemen, if I've not mentioned the category under which you fall, you are all most welcome. Can I, at this juncture, invite my colleague, by the way, I'm Chibenge Agre David, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development, but born and bred within the Ministry of Education and Sports, and I'm proud to associate myself with all these achievements. So my colleague Katie Lamaro, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education and Sports, will come and give us the context for this launch. You are welcome.
The First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, Ama Janet Kataha Museveni, Honorable Ministers present, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors and heads of bilateral missions to Uganda, regional directors of UN agencies, heads of UN agencies in Uganda, religious leaders, technical officers from UN, government ministries, departments and agencies, the head teacher, students, and entire community of Mengo Senior Secondary School, the visiting delegations from Kingdom of Eswatini and Namibia, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. I take the honor and privilege to welcome you all to this very important occasion at the official launch of the Education Plus initiative in Uganda. Dear Mama and all invited guests, as already mentioned, Education Plus initiative was conceived by 5 UN agencies: UNAIDS, UNESCO, UNFPA, UNICEF, and UN Women in 2019 with the purpose of stimulating renewed commitment towards empowerment of adolescent girls, young women, and boys as partners to end AIDS, gender-based discrimination, and violence. Mama, this is a high-profile, high-level political advocacy drive to accelerate actions and investments for adolescent girls, young women, and boys so that they can be agents of change to prevent new HIV infections, reduce teenage pregnancies, early marriages, gender-based violence by having access to secondary school education as an entry point. Dear invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, the issues to note are the following. 1, the pursuit of education for the girl child and to maintain her health and well-being are key global concerns reflected in multiple sustainable development goals, SDGs, notably health access, which is SDG 3, gender equality, which is SDG 5, education, which is SDG 4, nutrition, which is SDG 2, and poverty reduction, which is SDG 1. It is also clearly anchored in the Human Capital Development Program of the NDP 3. The agenda that Education Plus initiative sets out to achieve directly responds to the current challenges that education sector is trying to solve in order to empower and educate the girl child. You are aware that over the past 5 years, the enrollment of girls in primary schools has almost equaled and also surpassed the enrollment of boys. I think we need a clap for that. Unfortunately, not all enrolled girls in primary 1 will complete primary 7. The annual school census in 2017 shows that gross enrollment rate stand at 111.2% for both boys and girls, while the net enrollment rate stagnated at averagely 95% in primary schools. The net enrollment rate for girls alone was 94% compared to 93% for boys in the years 2017-18, with a gender parity index of 1.01 in 2017-18, implying that girls had slightly higher enrollment than boys. While we have managed to achieve gender parity in primary education, very few of the girls transition to and complete secondary. Very few girls transition to and complete secondary education. On average, 4 million girls enroll for primary education, but less than 1 million, amounting to 25%, transit to secondary education. Factors that make it difficult for girls to enroll and complete secondary are rooted in the social, cultural, and gender inequalities that disadvantage the girl child. The Education Plus initiative aims at accelerating strategic actions and investments towards interventions geared towards enrolling more girls in secondary education, ensuring that girls are kept in school and therefore complete secondary education while addressing the gender inequalities and empowering girls with lifelong skills to enable them safely transition into the world of work. Honorable Minister, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, available evidence shows that the longer a girl is kept in school, the more protective against HIV she is. Keeping girls in schools is crucial and a right in itself, but it is also a means to protect girls against HIV/AIDS infection and other vulnerabilities. For instance, greater gains have been made in reducing new HIV infections among adolescent girls and young women in countries that have higher population rates for lower secondary school. Having presented the above issues, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to inform you that as a country, we have made progress in addressing some of these issues. Following the global technical guidance, the Ministry of Education and Sports has worked with the joint UN team to conduct an extensive situation analysis on the status of girls' education and health outcomes. This has led to the development of a comprehensive program, priority action plan to guide tracking progress Education Plus initiative today will imply the voices and rally all stakeholders to resourcing efforts aimed at keeping girls in school and ensuring their completion. It is therefore my honor to welcome the UN Resident Coordinator, Ms. Susan Ngongi Namondo, to make her remarks. I say this for God and my country. Thank you.
Honorable First Lady and Minister of Education, honorable ministers here present with us, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors and development partners, including those from civil society and the private sector, the religious leaders here present with us, our hosts here, Mengo Secondary School, the visiting delegations from the Kingdom of Eswatini and Namibia, and my own UN colleagues, with a special mention for those who have visited us from afar. On behalf of the United Nations system in Uganda, I am pleased to participate in the launch of the Education Plus initiative. Uganda has a solid track record in leading and providing innovations that have furthered our collective aspirations for the education sector. The biggest ones, of course, were UP and USC some 2 decades ago, which really played a key role in helping bring more children to school and positively impacting the gender parity gap. Since then, a number of government initiatives have furthered education in Uganda. Now we're facing new challenges. And the biggest has been the 2+ consecutive years of annus horribilis we have all lived through as we've dealt with COVID-19. And we have to find renewed energies, creativity, and actions that mirror those bold actions back then to confront these new challenges that we're facing today. We aim for Education Plus, as has been mentioned already by the PS, to be a high-profile, high-level political advocacy drive to accelerate actions and investments towards adolescent girls, young women, and boys as agents of change to prevent HIV, reduce teen pregnancy, early marriages, gender-based violence, with access to secondary school education as an entry point. The theme for today's launch is repositioning Education Plus within the HIV/AIDS response at the center of a resilient, sustainable, integrated, and person-centered approach to health and tackling gender inequalities in Uganda. The education, health, and empowerment of Uganda's girls is at least 50% of the foundation for the fulfillment of the government's vision of transforming Uganda to a modern and prosperous country by 2040, and easily maybe a little bit more than 50 if we consider the social role of women in our societies. Girls' secondary education experience in Uganda is still characterized by lower access, higher dropout, and we've heard some of the statistics in primary already. About 25% of girls drop out of school because of pregnancy. And in these pandemic times, these rates have been much higher, up to 50% in districts like Namisindwa in Busigu, Amudat in Karamoja, and Kitangwenda in Toro Rwenzori region. There are disparities in completion rates, as we know. 40% of senior 4 boys compared to 36% of senior 4 girls. The gap increases 10 percentage points at senior 5, with 34% for boys and 24% for girls, transiting to upper secondary. And of course, to be frank, those numbers, we need to improve them even for the boys, for all of our kids. And at this time of problem, because what we've had to deal with recently, it's even more crucial that we know the numbers quickly. And I know that we're redesigning EMIS, but there's been a big gap in terms of real-time data. So I think we all hope that EMIS will come back online fairly soon. We also know from what we know in terms of the discussions we've been having, that some of the main reasons for girls dropping out of school is pregnancy, marriage, and also the cost of schooling in some parts. We know that delaying marriage when the appropriate policies are in place in schools will prevent early marriage and pregnancies. And these appropriate policies, of course, should include violence against children and gender-based violence prevention interventions that contribute to creating a safe school environment that protect girls from the risk of falling victim to sexual violence. We know that increasing access to lower secondary schools, reducing the cost of education for poor households, and providing incentives for girls to stay in school creates a positive effect on education access and attainment. The Education Plus initiative advocacy has been endorsed by these 5 agencies, as was mentioned earlier, and the aim is to urgently respond and address the alarming numbers of adolescent girls and young women acquiring HIV. We heard some very horrific statistics earlier today. To reduce teenage pregnancies, increase economic empowerment, and improve that transition to secondary school. Through this initiative, the UN will be advocating for sustainable financing and investments for secondary education to increase enrollment, retention, and completion of secondary school cycle for girls. The initiative further commits to leverage secondary schools as access points to deliver a comprehensive package of health, gender-based violence response, menstrual health management, water, sanitation, hygiene services, food security and nutrition, alongside social protection measures, including school-to-work transitions and young women's economic empowerment. The key engine, of course, is government and political leadership, key agents to transforming policies, practices, and investments in secondary school education. The UN family really looks forward to being part of this effort and looks at this launch of the Education Plus initiative as a sign of the commitment of government to achieve the desires of this initiative. On behalf of the UN family, I reiterate our support to the government of Uganda, to the people of Uganda, but especially the girls, that through the implementation of our UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, we will help in terms of these goals. Honorable Minister and First Lady, today's launch will be followed up by regional engagements on levels of teen pregnancy, with emphasis on regions that reported the highest levels of teen pregnancy. And of course, unsurprisingly, those regions that reported the highest level are also among the most vulnerable, including in terms of the high rates of poverty. We all count on your leadership for an increased investment, where possible, through the education budget. But also, more importantly, I think it's your voice, and you're rallying all of us towards the achievement of these goals. And so on that note, we recommit ourselves, and of course, I think what we all hope for is to ensure that girls are safe, healthy, they complete their secondary education, acquire skilling opportunities that would allow them to play the full part that they are meant to play as regards our common future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Your Excellency. Susan Namondo, the UN Resident Coordinator. She's going to be followed by Madame Anne Githuku Shongwe, who will be giving a brief on Education Plus. As she comes, we welcome Dr. Serwada of the Born Again Faith. I saw him arrive, of the Interreligious Council. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you, the First Lady, Your Excellency, Minister of Education. Thank you so much for this invitation and for the opportunity to be here. I bring greetings from across the region of Eastern Southern Africa, from my colleagues, regional directors, from other United Nations agencies who are also partners here and who have sent me to speak on our collective behalf. Thank you. I also recognize our ministers who are here present, my colleagues, the friends who have come from Namibia and Eswatini. Your Excellency, I'm married in Eswatini, so I have to really respect them everywhere I go. So my in-laws are in the room, in the house. I also want to recognize our religious leaders who are here, Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, United Nations leadership here, led by my sister Susan, and all of my colleagues who are here. But I want to recognize more than anyone else the young people who are present, who are singing so beautifully earlier, giving us hope for a much better future than many of us are discussing and describing today. Let me start by congratulating you, Your Excellency. Congratulating you and His Excellency, the President himself, who have led on HIV for decades. This is not a new subject for you at all. We are 8 years to our goal of ending AIDS as a public health threat, 8.5 years before what we all collectively agreed that by 2030 we would see the end of AIDS. By 2030 we would see the end of gender inequality. By 2030 we would see that universal primary and secondary education, that universal health care would all be achieved. We have done very well on some indicators, done better on treatment and testing, especially on HIV, but we are lagging severely in some areas, and this is what brings us here today. So as we look across the world, and our colleagues have talked about this, we're particularly concerned that just in our region of Eastern Southern Africa, every single week we see 3,200 new infections amongst adolescent girls and young women. And Your Excellency, it's scary because we normally give this quote of 3,200 between the ages of 15 to 24, but the numbers are going lower and lower and lower. 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds who have been impregnated, who are therefore infected, and increasingly we're seeing babies born to HIV when we thought we had turned the corner on mother-to-child transmission, on children born to HIV. And so we need to close this tap, and that is why Education Plus is so essential. The interesting thing is that with the teenage pregnancy levels and the HIV levels we see amongst young girls, the girls are 4 times more likely to be infected than boys of exactly the same age. And what that's telling us is that the girls are not being infected by their age mates. They're being infected by older men in general. We know the story, but we must keep calling it out, because if we don't, then we're not able to address where the problem is coming from. And so a lot of what we saw in the pregnancies amongst young girls and the HIV infections are a result of rape, defilement, and abuse, and that's what we need to address specifically. So, Your Excellency, as we address these issues, we also have to address men. And we have many here, whether in the media or from religious organizations or political leaders. We have to address men because they are both responsible for the infections amongst girls, but they're also very vulnerable when it comes to our health. And what we find is that while HIV has a young girl's face, HIV infections has a young girl's face, the deaths have a man's face. Because many men don't seek health as well as they should. And so we are lagging behind in our response to HIV when it comes to men in particular. Your Excellency, I heard them calling you Mama, so maybe I'll say Mama and I'll say Her Excellency as we go along. In a meeting I had yesterday with His Excellency, Minister of State, Honorable Kabuye Gichofa, he talked and he had this huge book in front of him, which was registering Boda Boda riders in Kampala. I'm from Kenya, so we also have the Boda Boda challenges, the same. But he shared how they were registering Boda Boda riders. And we know from our region that these are some of the young men who have access to young girls in the transportation. And so he committed and shared with us the strategies to look at how to use these riders as part of engaging men to curb the infections to the adolescent girls. So the interplay between HIV, gender inequality, and gender-based violence is very clear. And we have strong policy environments at a global level, at a regional level, whether it's SADC or the East African community. We have multiple model laws on gender-based violence, on sexual and reproductive health and rights. In East Africa, we have our own policy environment on education, health, and well-being that we're all supporting and working closely on. But the Education Plus initiative for us is a tool to accelerate what we have done for many years in a way that will turn the tide on these HIV infections. And so the plus is what is new, because we talk about universal completion of education, but we also now are talking about age and culturally appropriate sexuality education, freedom from sexual and gender-based violence, fulfillment of sexual and reproductive health and rights, and school-to-work transitions for young women's economic security. Your Excellency, I applaud the government for having already a very, very strong base to start this Education Plus work. When we've reviewed Uganda, we have seen, in addition to universal primary and secondary education, you already have a national sexuality education framework, which we would like to share with the rest of the world, and we congratulate you for leading that work. You have guidelines for re-entry into school for pregnant schoolgirls. This was hugely controversial some years ago, but you've done that already. National strategy to end child marriage and teenage pregnancy. National plan of action for gender-based violence and violence against children. School health policy. You know, you've got a really, really strong base for which to build on for the purposes of this. Your Excellency, as I look to wrap up, I just want to share a couple of examples from a few countries that I think will be useful to learn as we push for this Education Plus. In terms of universal access to secondary education, Lesotho is preparing a draft school retention policy as we speak for learners, and has begun a process to follow up and find the girls who are missing since who dropped out from COVID closures. So there's a very strong example. In Malawi and Zambia, cash transfers is a big initiative that is being driven to see whether the provision of cash in the hands of girls through vouchers and different mechanisms will enable them to be retained. They don't drop out because of needing sanitary pads or being able to top up their school fees. In terms of access to sexuality education, Eswatini, led by the Deputy Prime Minister, has led the charge to really look at the content of age and culturally appropriate curriculum. They're calling it guidance and counseling, life skills education. Zambia has been working under the leadership of the Vice President, along with Parliament, with the religious organizations and other partners. They held a national dialogue on sexuality education to agree on what it is the nation wants to have there, so that, you know, Minister, it's been quite a controversial issue, but it's been a useful exercise as multiple partners engage on exactly what the country wants that's relevant. In the fulfillment of sexual and reproductive health and rights, South Africa has worked with the Department of Basic Education and is launching a policy on prevention and management of learner pregnancy in schools to eliminate some of those disparities and make sure that they can deal with the adverse effects of pregnancy. Kenya has launched a triple threat initiative looking at the issue of pregnancies, violence, and HIV in schools. Then on the issue of gender-based violence, your partner with WAFLAD, Her Excellency Fatima Madbayo, the First Lady of Sierra Leone, is a key supporter of Education Plus initiative, one of the first ones to launch, and has included the Hands Off Our Girls campaign that she runs and is now well known to remove hindrances that deny girls access to education and violate them in schools. Male engagement is growing around the schools, and Malawi has he-for-she schools with the partners UN Women, and they have been involving traditional leaders and chiefs in ensuring that a lot of the customary laws that prohibit girls and result in their abuse would be reversed. Namibia has a national Safe Schools program in line with the Safer Schools program that assesses and audits all around the school grounds to understand who potential violators are and create a safe space for girls. And then the school to work transitions for young women's economic security and autonomy. Kenyan schools have pioneered integrating vocational training to prepare girls to go from their schools directly into businesses or work. UN Women has been supporting Young Women for Life in 7 countries in Southern Africa, where they connect them to economic opportunities. So these are some examples of what is coming out of the Education Plus initiatives, so that they're working across these multiple areas. I don't know if I've lost the mic, but as I wrap up, Excellency, I want to just talk about 2 things. One is about girls and young people's agency. The voice of young people themselves, and themselves being engaged in ensuring their safety in schools, ensuring that they protect one another, that they guide one another. We learned a lot from the AIDS agenda for over the decades, that peer learning, peer education, peer support makes a big difference. So supporting young women and young women's movements and young women's voice is crucial. The last one is about financing this agenda. Many have asked us, how are we going to finance this agenda if in fact we don't have additional resources? But you know, we're not asking about new money. We're talking about prioritizing the money that we already have and utilizing it and directing it in the right direction. But of course, we are at a global level continuing to look at where we can find resources and encouraging countries to continue to increase their education investment. We know it's difficult, but this is necessary and is an investment in the future of our countries. We applaud your government for the free secondary education. It's not a common one. It's a first for many of our African countries, Your Excellency. And the Education Plus initiative is here to elevate, to accelerate, and to build on a lot of your progressive policy direction already. On behalf of UNAIDS and all our co-sponsor agencies and our partners, I would like to express our commitment to continue our support to the government and the people of Uganda in this strategic direction and action, and to empower the young women and girls who truly are our future mothers, our future teachers, our future heads of state, even in some of our countries. And finally, we count on you, along with the other First Ladies, to continue in the OAFLAD initiative to support this work. And we thank you. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you. Shongwe. I caught the last bit, and if you missed out anything, remember what she said. We are here to elevate, to accelerate, and to build on initiatives. And that is very important. Can we have Mengo Senior Secondary School to not only entertain but also educate through that performance? And thereafter, we'll have remarks from the chair of the Education Working Group, the representative of the Ambassador of Ireland.
The First Lady, Mama, and the Honorable Minister of Education and Finance, of Education and Sports, Your Excellencies, protocol observed, good afternoon. My name is Muchibi Ambrose Keith, and I'm here with the poem, My Sister, the Girl Child Cries. Uganda, my home country, my motherland, the land of my ancestors. History has stories on many subject matters, but the present and the future has the place of the girl child. A route leading to the men of tomorrow, a lamp unto the path of success, a boat sailing over life to independence, a ready help for every husband, the brain behind the success of all men. My sister cries, the girl child cries, why don't you educate me? I am not just born to make coffee and tea. My heart aches badly when I say this sadly. I would like to go to schools where children get everything to know. You do not know how I feel when children carry their bags and meals. I am just a girl who is gentle and mild. At least now, allow me to go to school, for I do not want to be a fool. There is no arguing. The girl child is knowledge, a person with great wisdom and brand. For genuine counsel abides with her. Leading by example is her way of life. Instructing by living is her way of culture. Guiding by doing it is her way of tradition. For she is born a teacher who knows just what and how to teach. As only a grown child knows actual pains. Oh, my mother, who alone knows the highway to education. No wonder she teaches even outside the classroom. The girl is the transmitter of knowledge. But how can she transmit knowledge without being educated? Give me your hands and let's take the girl child to school. Your hand and my hand can change the sky. country. Ladies and gentlemen, the hope lies in the girl child, for the hope of tomorrow lies in her. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Muchibi deserves another round of applause. And particularly building on the earlier message that the men, the boys are key allies in this struggle. And I thought when Muchibi started off with what was seemingly an error, something has been running through my mind. That maybe he had an important message. We need resources. And Muchibi was only wishing Mama was both Minister of Education and also Finance. But thank you. Before the representative of the Irish ambassador comes, allow me to quickly acknowledge or recognize that within our midst, as part of the UN team, but at regional level, is the representative of the regional director of UN Women, Madam Jackie Utamuriza Nzisabira. Madam Jackie, you are most welcome. But also to acknowledge that together with Mengo SS is a team of other schools led by their head teachers, and in some instances some parents are here, but we have representation from Trinity College, Nabingo, Gayaza High School, Nabisunsa Girls School, Kololo Senior Secondary School, Lubiri Senior Secondary School, Rubaka Girls, Gombe High School, Kawala, St. Joseph Nsambya SS, Mariam High School, Luzira SS, and Our Lady of Good Counsel, Gayaza. You are all most welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have the representative of the Ambassador of Ireland, Lorraine Gallagher, I hope I get the last one correct, to come and talk to us.
Honourable Minister of Education and Sports and First Lady, Ministers, Members of Parliament, Commissioners, Permanent Secretaries, UN representatives and ambassadors, religious and cultural leaders, visiting delegates, representatives of civil society and private sector, the young people here present, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. A good afternoon to you all. I'm delighted to join you here today. While I usually represent the Embassy of Ireland to Uganda, I'm here today as Chair of the Education Development Partners to show our collective commitment and support to this very important initiative, supported by us all today. I would like to start by thanking the Minister of Education and First Lady Mama, a long-time supporter of girls' education and committed adolescent girl champion. Together with her counterparts in government, we applaud the commitment of Uganda's female leaders for spearheading and promoting gender equality in the country. Uganda must also be applauded for developing and adopting multiple policies, including the guidelines for re-entry that we have mentioned, that protect and prioritise adolescent girls to empower them as agents of change and economic growth and socio-economic transformation. This includes Uganda's National Development Plan 3, which gives a clear framework to ensure that Uganda's youth and girls should not just survive, but thrive, and that no one should be left behind. We know that there are now multiple initiatives focusing on the adolescent girl and teenage pregnancy, including the impressive national campaign of Save the Girl and Protect the Nation. We seek now to exploit the added value, the plus, in Education Plus, in addition to what exists already. What is vital in this initiative and what we welcome is the multi-sector and multi-dimensional approach, which no doubt with the leadership of 5 UN agencies will help us to ensure better synergies, linkages and integration of services. The linkages are many. One example, efforts to prevent HIV are also efforts to prevent teenage pregnancy and reduce the risk for young girls in terms of maternal health. A young girl or woman does not distinguish between sectors or agencies or ministries as she seeks to reach her potential and thrive in her community and society. As partners, we still have some work to do to ensure better efficiency of our investments, and we are hopeful that this initiative will bring us together further behind a shared vision. We strongly welcome that this initiative explicitly includes the empowerment of adolescent boys who will become men. Experience has taught us that they are a key agent and enabler of the vision we seek together, to respect and protect girls and women as their sisters, mothers and wives. And we have heard the eloquent and impressive voice of the male poet that came before me, who is one such champion. We have heard many statistics, but allow me to add 2, which I think offer us hope, telling us what works and what can bring us forward. UNESCO estimates that globally, if all girls complete primary school, child marriage would fall by 14%. If they all finished secondary school, this would plummet by 64%. There is also compelling evidence when it comes to HIV. Girls with post-primary education are 5 times more likely than illiterate women to be educated on the topic of HIV and AIDS. The importance of transiting and keeping girls in secondary school is striking. So on behalf of the Education Development Partners, please allow me to cite what we see as some important steps forward to achieve our ambition. We request the effective implementation of the gender and violence against children in school policies and to ensure equitable access to education in a safe learning environment. We seek to support affirmative action to re-engage and re-enroll those children who we lost from school in the COVID pandemic. We need to do even more than before to promote the universal right to education by encouraging teenage mothers to return to school. Girls who have become mothers during the pandemic should be offered additional support, should be protected from stigma, judgment or discrimination in order to allow them to reach their potential and ensure well-being for themselves and their children. The prioritization of the psychosocial well-being of children, especially those who have experienced additional trauma, like child mothers. Honourable Minister, colleagues here present, as Chair of the Education Development Partners, please let me conclude by recommitting our collective support and engagement to work through this initiative with your ministers and all here present to reach our shared ambition. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can see the thread that is running through all these statements. And one again that has captured my attention is the fact that a young girl or woman, you can even replace this with a young person, does not differentiate between sectors. That should bother us, the policymakers, the planners, the fathers, and everybody here. For them education, health, agriculture, finance should lead to one thing: for them to live and achieve their full potential. So the responsibility falls back to all of us here, and we thank you for that message. We are going to watch a video clip where we'll hear the voices of the young people engaging with stakeholders, including ministers. So let's watch just a few minutes, about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll proceed to the next part of our program, which will be a dialogue.
In 2007, Uganda became the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to introduce universal secondary education. This was in addition to the earlier universal primary education in 1997, which increased school enrollment of school-going boys and girls in the country. The Education Plus initiative is aimed at reducing HIV infections among adolescent girls, young women and boys as partners, reduce early sexual debut, early marriage and pregnancy, creation of better opportunities and transit to work.
I hail the Ministry of Education and Sports for standing firm in the post-COVID period and coming up with policies that promote re-entry into school of teenage pregnant girls, of girls who have been victims of sexual and gender-based violence, of girls who have children they've left back at home. That opportunity to come back to school and complete or continue with the educational journey is the best gift that any government, any country can give to its children.
However, in the recent past, the country has experienced a high rate of school dropouts, especially among the girl child, which has exposed them to early marriages and pregnancies, HIV, and other forms of violence.
As a head teacher, I have experienced children going out of school, basically because of lack of what to use.
I would say psychosocial issues. When you go into them, you find that there is something terribly wrong in the home. Daddy and mommy, they are separate.
In 2021, the country registered the highest number of teenage pregnancies in a decade, with Busoga sub-region registering the highest cases, mostly in districts of Mayuge, Kamoli, and Bujiri.
People are very poor in these parts of the country, in that even those who appreciate education, it becomes very hard for them to support and facilitate their children to get education.
At Budatemwa village in Chitaimbwa sub-county, almost half of school-going adolescent girls are known studying, with the majority at home, digging, while others are already teenage mothers.
Kati ngawe mwide abasaada kankopo boye balimbalimba abanimbalimba kati zena nalowooza nti oba nti muntu mutegeevu ali kunkoba kumbe tasobola nakuntwala.
Kati wano waliwo omukazi ye nga muntu we nga ye nantumikiza. Kati olwasooka naye yantumikiza nga simanyi muvuuka nga sesibimanyi, n'aŋŋamba jangu tugende, lyali kiro, n'aŋŋamba jangu tugende, ne tugenda bulungi. Puno omulenzi ye n'ankwata byampaka.
In Buyende district, we met another teenage mother, Hadija Nachisege, whose dream of becoming a nurse hangs in balance after giving birth to a baby boy.
Yakoba ati nja kubba embaga. Yakoba nze nkakola ki? Nkasoma. Yampa olubuto. Bampa olubuto. Nze naati abazaire. Kola ki? Okunkuba. Yakoba ati kola nkulumiseewo. Yanumsaawo yandeeta awo. Embeera tinungi. Era nze nenda kwirayo ku isomero. Yakoba azira ssente.
Locals in these communities blame the confusion on poverty, deception from men, and neglect from parents.
Ekyamatola mu isomero nga nzira bulungi ssente. Baba yena nga azira kyakola.
Abawala abalala obwetaavu bwo balina buki bungi. Kale chapati zibamalidde ki ebiseera.
Omwana yali alimala okusoma COVID neyaida. Batyama, bwe yatyama yafuna obuzibu, yafuna mwana mwine.
Abazadde abalala tebafaayo kubanga ne wano ndina omusajja omu alina abaana agendayoka emirundi giswikamu 5 ng'amugamba nti zaayo ki abaana ku ssomero ogenda oyogera naki n'abasomesa nabo bantu nga ggwe naye omusajja oyo teyafaayo.
The moment religion was made optional in schools, I think we hit a dead end.
Nonetheless, government refutes the accusation given the free education it has put across at all levels.
The government has come out and said, you have a UPE school in the neighborhood here. You have a universal secondary education school here in the neighborhood. Why don't you go and proceed with your education?
An average Ugandan, wherever he or she finds herself, has no excuse whatsoever of not offering an opportunity to children, especially the girl child, of accessing school and education. You must have heard about universal secondary education. Government goes even further to say even those that may not make it in the traditional secondary schools where the programs are largely academic, there's also what they call universal post-primary education and training, where in these training institutions where people acquire vocational skills, even that education is free on the part of government.
Teenage pregnancies have hindered the attainment of higher education to many girls. However, to Mercy Ajalo Roth, a mother to a 2-year-old girl, the story is different.
I was pregnant in 2020. I was in Form 3 by then, and I gave birth to a girl child. After giving birth, the school was opened, and I went back. And then the pandemic dropped in again. We were sent back home. After coming back home, I was breastfeeding the child, taking care of her. Then this very year, when they opened, I decided still to go back because I really want to study.
The government of Uganda has made significant interventions to respond not only to those who have already dropped out, but also to those who wish to continue with their studies.
We came up with the guidelines, and our minister approved the guidelines, championed the whole cause, and these guidelines were disseminated. They were guiding these little ones on how they could keep themselves safe.
With proper guidance and counseling, educationalists believe these teenagers can still fulfill their career dreams.
This girl should be given a second chance. If this child is prepared psychologically to come back to school, they are going to be better Ugandans.
Producing is not a crime that it can refuse her from coming back to study. Even if she produces, she can come back and study, and she performs even better than those who did not produce.
Puberty, one of the stages of growth in women, comes with a lot of challenges to the girl child, and at times it affects their performances at school.
There is a level of permissiveness that comes with this kind of growth. It comes with a level where they don't want to be controlled by rules and regulations.
You feel you have grown up, you want to do what you want, you start getting attractions, you want to be next to men.
Our first week of orientation, we take them through all these details. And then we prepare them and tell them when this happens, it's normal. You just thank God and tell God, finally, I'm a woman.
To some of the girls, it's a devastating experience, but they have learned how to handle.
We usually have the menstruation periods, then the growing of pubic hair in the armpits and the other private parts. So, you know, when that hair grows, you tend to have a stench. You smell.
I can get embarrassed, I can get self-neglect, like I feel these boys are going to be talking about me, about this and this, this and this, this and this. But then when I'm with girls and they're talking, well, I know we are going to go through the same situation, we go through the same body changes, so it's definitely okay with me.
Teachers believe this is a fundamental stage in the growth and development of a girl child that requires high levels of responsiveness.
A girl child needs to feel loved, needs to be commended when she has done something good.
And if the parent empowers this child, my father kept on telling me, "You are the most beautiful woman in the world." Meaning, when I hear it from another man, I'll know I'm already beautiful. So you're not telling me anything new.
Girls are at the highest risk of acquiring HIV than boys, with 5 out of 6 new cases of HIV among adolescents between 15 and 19 years being girls. During the interview, the same group of girls expressed their knowledge about HIV.
I fear HIV.
As me as a person, I fear. But other girls, they say that is flu.
We also discussed with the young girls and boys on what they know about sexual reproductive health and rights.
They told me that if you are still in school, you should not interact sex. You can acquire HIV. You can acquire some diseases.
I'm aware that through sexual intercourse, we can be affected with several diseases.
Teachers explained the importance of equipping girls with hands-on skills. In that regard, girls shared the benefits that come with equipping themselves with livelihood skills.
We give these children, the girls, skills that will enable them live a happy life even after school.
Somebody comes out who is competent enough to survive on his or her own.
And I strongly appreciate the Ministry of Education and Sports for the vocational subjects that are now on this revised curriculum.
I can sing, I can wave, I can do a lot of things.
They're going to feel like, yeah, they can do it. Even if a man decides to move away from the woman, she's still able to look after herself. If she has kids, she's also able to look after her children.
Leaders explained the role of different stakeholders in keeping children at school.
It is combined effort, starting with a parent who pays the fees.
Regardless of the status, the girl child must be kept in school by policy.
We need to sensitize our children so that they know what this package called education involves.
I like the strong arm of government to deal with men who keep on pregnanting young girls who are in school.
Like the men who had pregnanted girls during the COVID. For them, they are out there. Most of them are not giving help to their kids. And the girls are suffering. So the government should take an action on those men.
The overall Education Plus initiative is built on 4 pillars, which, if well utilized, fundamental achievements will be realized.
Completion of girls' education. That means from the early childhood education to primary or basic education to secondary education to university or tertiary institutions and also to other vocational institutions. Believing that when that happens, you minimize the chance for these girls to be engaged in other things that may be harmful to their sexual reproductive health and therefore prevent them from contracting STIs and other vices. So one approach, therefore, is to ensure that girls enroll in school, they remain in school, they complete in school, and they transit from school to the world of work.
We'll have a dialogue where young people are going to put it to the ministers, to these people that I'm calling forward. They'll raise some questions to them so that they provide them with answers. This dialogue is going to be moderated by the UNICEF representative, and I would like him to take his seat, followed by Honorable Chofa Kabuye, the Minister of State in charge of KCCA and the Greater Metropolitan Area. Honorable Sarah Nyiravasiki Mateke, Minister of State in charge of Children, Youth and Children Affairs. Dr. Nelson Musoba, Director General Uganda AIDS Commission, kindly step forward. They don't have any prepared texts. The young people coming forward are going to put their questions to them through the moderator. Muhwezi Jasper of Mengo. I must get this correct now. There is no word secondary. Mengo Senior School. Is that correct? Yes. Otherwise, they'll declare me persona non grata here. Kizito Eddie John. Those students, please come forward. Come forward here. You'll be putting your questions to them. They'll come here at the podium. Murungi Kirabo Traces from Gayaza. Muhwezi Jasper and Kizito Eddie John from Mengo.
That was my bro.
Murungi Bonita from Nabisunsa. Naluyange Joan from Nabingo Trinity College. Director Ismail Mulindwa should also join the panel. Ismail Mulindwa is Director Basic Education. So I hand over to the moderator. These young people have questions they want to put to that panel. And yours is to protect them so that they are not intimidated and they raise those questions. Okay, just a minute. I'm told there is a lady who wants to join the panel who has had a second opportunity, and she is going to be part of that panel. She'll introduce herself.
The First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, the ministers present, the UN Coordinator of Uganda, the clergy, the ambassadors, the MPs and all other dignitaries, and Mengo fraternity, good afternoon. My question goes to the Honorable Minister of Presidency. I want to thank you for this interesting program. And my question, what plans do you have to ensure leadership development and opportunities for collecting learners' opinions and contributions are standardized across board? What we see are different approaches reporting pregnancy and sexual harassment across different learning institutions, and sometimes no opportunities are provided, leaving school administrations unaware of the learners' needs. Thank you.
The First Lady, Mama Janeti Kataha Museveni, the ministers, the UN delegates, religious leaders, all protocol observed, a good afternoon. Kizito Eddie John from Mengo Senior School, and I want to first thank the First Lady and all the delegates in this place for supporting this initiative for our sisters to be in school. My question is directed to the Honorable Minister of Health. Sexuality education and access to sexual reproductive health information and services in school communities remains difficult. Yet you know well that some of the learners are sexually active and inquisitive. What measures has your ministry put in place to link these learners to relevant information for their safety and well-being? Thank you.
ministers present, the ambassadors, and the distinguished guests, I greet you all. My name is Murunji Bonita, and I am from Nabisunsa Girls School. My question goes to the Minister of Education and Sports. We all know the conditions and circumstances in our families and communities do not favor the education of the girl child. My question today is, can the Ministry of Education and Sports make it compulsory for girls to finish and start their secondary school before they are looked at as beautiful wives, excellent households, or anything else? I believe that this should be followed.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shrabo Tracy, and I'm from Gaza High School. My question is, partnership is a key strategy in all efforts to address barrier to education for the girl child. Is it possible for the Honorable Prime Minister to establish an interministerial platform that will draw technical and financial support for girls and young women transitioning from school into the world of work? Thank you.
The First Lady, the Minister of Education and Sports, all distinguished guests, good afternoon. My question is, culture leaders, church leaders, and all families watch young girls indulge into premature marriages, and some of them preside over these functions. What does the ministry think? What can the ministry do to stop this vice?
Thank you very much for these wonderful questions. And before we give the opportunity for the 5 panelists to answer the questions posed by this group of students in the university, I want to highlight a couple of issues which are very important and related to the achievements, the challenges with regard to educating young people in Uganda. The first point I want to mention is that in Uganda, the children in the age group 6 to 18 represent over 50% of the population of Uganda. 6 to 18 represent over 50%. And if you look at young people under the age of 24 years in Uganda, they represent 75% of the population. 3/4 of the population. This means for the government of Uganda to educate this significant number of children, they need massive resources. Uganda has done extremely well over the years with regard to universal primary education and universal secondary education. In 1997, Uganda was a pioneer in adopting the universal primary education. And 10 years later, Uganda was the first country in the region, in Africa, to adopt the universal secondary education. With these approaches and the commitment of the government, especially at that time, the government spending on education represented 15% of total government expenditure. As a result of this massive commitment, massive, I would say, operations, we were able to see 15 million learners coming into the schools in Uganda. This is significant, honestly. At the moment, we do see a number of challenges. The first challenge is that COVID has made it difficult not only for Uganda, for countries around the world to secure the same amount of social spending that was available prior to COVID. And we do see that social spending in Uganda and in many countries, especially after COVID, has reduced significantly. But what we are seeing is that the population of young people who need to be in school is growing quite fast, while the financial resources needed for their education because of the macroeconomic challenges are also diminishing. In 2010, the population of children under the age between 6 and 18 in Uganda was around 10 million. In 3 years from now, 2025, the same age group will represent 20 million people. So we are talking about massive challenges in terms of education, in terms of population growth, and the need to secure resources for this growing number of children. Now, I'm very happy to moderate this discussion and dialogue with 5 distinguished participants. I'm very happy to start the first question with the Honorable State Minister of Gender. And I will take you directly to the question with regard to child marriage, cultural challenges, child labor. What is the Ministry of Gender doing to address these issues? If you can kindly brief us. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. The First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, Mama Janet Museveni, allow me to stand on the existing protocol because of time and go right to the question that have been asked. I'm called Nyirabashitsi Sarah Mateke, Member of Parliament and Minister of State for Gender, Labour and Social Development, in charge of youth and children. The question directed to me and directed to my ministry. I would want to first thank the First Lady and the Minister of Sports for spearheading this initiative. And of course appreciate the UN agencies under the leadership of the UN Resident Coordinator and development partners for the extended support that they have given to us and government of Uganda. As Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, of course, this is a ministry of the people, and we have put in place different or several programs on ending child marriages, teenage pregnancy, and I can outline some of the things that we have done as a ministry. One, we have put in place, or we have been having in place, the National Strategy for Ending Child Marriage and Teenage Pregnancy, which was from 2015 to 2020, and currently we are reviewing it. We have the National Action Plan on Prevention and Response to Gender-Based Violence, which we have been supported by European Union and other United Nations agencies, and all these are driven to support all their interventions to support in ending violence and of course ending the child marriages. As a ministry, we are mandated under the National Development Plan, and we are the leading ministry in charge of community mobilization and mindset change. And one of the biggest challenges that we have in Uganda is the issue of mindset. If the issue of mindset is worked on, I believe that the issue of the child marriage is one of the things that we can end. Because if you go to Eastern Uganda and you see the markets that are there, which which are being spearheaded by our own parents. To find a parent is the one spearheading the sale of the child to go into marriage. And as a ministry, we are really working on that seriously, and of course working together with the enforcement to stop this. As Ugandans, one of the biggest issues, and I always thank this First Lady because she has always talked about it, the issue of parenting. If our parents would value their own children, I believe that the ministry would have less work. But before we work on the mindset, before we work on the parenting of our parents, knowing what they are supposed to do and valuing their children, it will still continue to be a problem. Of course, as Ministry of Gender, we have also put in place male involvement as a strategy so that we are able to bring the boys and the men on board, because basically these are part of the people that bring the issue. We have always spearheaded the issue of the girl child, and at times we have left out the boys, and this time the boys came out to show us what they are capable of doing. So as one of the strategies, we are involving the male or our boys so that we are able to make them our brothers and they work with their sisters properly. Of course, we are involving very closely with the religious leaders and the cultural leaders, still within Ministry of Education, Ministry of Gender. We are involving the religious leaders and the cultural leaders, that we sit together, we agree together. I have not had any religious leader so far. I've been in this office for 1 year. I want to testify. I have not had any religious leader who has officiated a marriage of a girl who is less than 18 years. So I really want to applaud them. That has not come into my office yet. Mr. Moderator, together we can protect the children and the young people of Uganda. We only need to work together and also request the enforcement to come on board, because most of the time what you have heard when I was listening there, most of our cases, the cases when people go to report, the parents want to end the cases from police. They go and negotiate, and parents want the dowry. The dowry is done there in front of the enforcement. I think that should end. And at times they even don't reach police. These things are done at LC1. They call the LC1, because I've had cases like those where the LC1 comes and even endorses that he has accepted the marriage, they have accepted the bride price, which is very bad. But I believe that together we can end this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable State Minister. Together we can change this. We can change the mindset. The ministry is currently engaging both men and young boys into protecting girls, into preventing child marriage, and a clear statement that there is no record of religious leaders officiating underage marriages. This is very good news to hear. Thank you very much. Now, let me move to the Honorable State Minister at Presidency. The question posed to you by one of the students about the standards across the system, standards across schools for reporting pregnancy, for enabling girls to return to school, re-entry. It seems that there are different practices. What is the role you and your team are playing into bringing into place an enforcement of standards for reporting pregnancies, standards for supporting pregnant teenage girls and allowing them back in schools?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Our guest Mama, the First Lady, and also allow me, Mr. Chair, to write out existing protocols before I catch up with time. The question is a bit lengthy and has various aspects in it. However, as a ministry for presidency, our role is majorly coordination, but the coordination is also has got a lot of aspects within, but we provide the leadership that is necessary to attract and also to provide preventive measures rather than curative measures against these fights and occurrences. Because at the ministry, we coordinate security, and security cascades down from the village. We have different security agencies and different security arrangements. That is the internal security organization. And also the parasecurity. You may call them the advocates and the lobbyists, and then wherever such an occurrence happens in a village, it's the duty of the local councils where the girl child stays to report to the nearest security operative. And most of the villages have got, especially in the city here, they have got their PISOs, their VISOs, their PISOs, then the GISOs, then the DISOs, up to the center. So, time and again, a lot of information has been collected by these people and then passed it over to the authorities which can now enforce. That is the police and other agencies. So that one has been done. Then on the other side, on the side of students, we have, because again the question had an aspect of leadership, coordination and leadership training, sort of like preparation. So we have what we call the Patriotism Club, which actually work hand in hand with the Scouts movement. So the Patriotism Club focuses mainly, first of all, on the ideology, but they go hand in hand with the mindset training, where the young people, I don't want to mention the girl child because we always make the boy child. And we all know a lot of effort has been put on the girl child, forgetting the boy child, who actually has been one of those who came up to disrupt the life of the girl child. So the two move hand in hand. But at our ministry, we've got the Patriotism Club's whole department, and they do trainings and sensitization, and most of the schools across the country are now having Patriotism Club among themselves. And we believe the best education, especially when it comes to these social fabrics, are through peer sort of arrangement. Like one of the students testified that when we talk to our fellow girls, we'll know the changes and also accept the conditions that is normal, and they can live with them. So basically, that's what has been being done at the Ministry of Presence. But in terms of structures, we provide leadership from the districts. I've got a resident district commissioner who represents the presidency at the district level, and of course he has got a lot of parallel structures and staff he works with to calm down the situation. And indeed, through our structures as the Minister of Education, Minister of Presidency, we've registered a lot of these cases, and mostly such cases have been known because of the vigorous and the activeness of our staff. That is the internal security team, police, and of course a few right-minded and upright Ugandans who feel this cannot happen, and they work out around it. And of course, as a ministry and as government in totality, we've got punitive measures and punitive laws. That's why when you caught and one of the, whatever you've been in defilement, such cases are not a joke. It's not easy. And these are one of the aspects why you had a few months ago, when our president was like trying to advocate for removal of bail. The bail was not for all these cases, the petty cases. The bails were focusing mainly on defilement, rape, and murder. These are grave mistakes, especially if you rape a young child who is 9 years, 10, 12, up to maybe 18 years. A child who has not got an upright mind of consent. So such actions, we say no. As government, let's come up with measures which will become preventive to another person to repeat such actions. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much. There was a third question about sexuality education and what is being done to educate young people on their bodies, the changes, and how to protect themselves. And I would like to request the Director General of the Uganda AIDS Commission to address this question.
Thank you, Moderator. Our chief guest and First Lady of Uganda and Minister of Education, Mama Janet Kataha Museveni, all protocol observed. This is a good question from the young person, and I will address it I will touch on the sexuality education framework. I'll also talk about the school health program. But before that, Chief Guest, I would like to acknowledge you and appreciate you for your work that you've done in the past. I know that we are partly here seeking your leadership because of that success. Some years back, again, you led a program of prevention and elimination of mother-to-child transmission of HIV. You led us to the regions. The numbers, the prevalence of babies being born with HIV massively reduced. Of course, because of the recent challenges, including COVID, these gains are facing risks and are getting reversed. So we have no doubt in your abilities in leading us again into another round of success. Now, the question of sexuality education framework. Again, a few years back, this was a collaborative effort with other departments. Again, your ministry led. This framework was launched, and a number of aspects within the framework are being implemented. I know, even listening to some of the learners who are testifying, you could see that they have skills. You know, they know, some of them know what the risks are and how to prevent themselves. And although a few of our stakeholders may have come and were, worried about what does it mean when you're introducing a sexuality education framework in schools, what are you teaching these children? I know as a country we had a discussion, we agreed what should be in there and what shouldn't, things that should be age appropriate, issues that should be culturally sensitive. And we will come back to you for leadership again, especially around language, because some stakeholders might see, a framework titled sexuality, and the direct interpretation is that you're going to teach learners, who are not yet mature, who are not ready about issues of sexuality. So this is part of the guidance we shall seek. I know that there are already efforts to equip children, to counsel them, to ensure that they are able to protect themselves, that they have the skills. And in some of these efforts you've led, they are not everywhere, they are not all over the country, but again, these are some of the reasons that we are here and that we would like you to give us your leadership. The second area, that falls in this, that can equip our learners, is the school health policy. This was largely, again, it was a collaborative effort led initially by the Ministry of Health, but required your ministry to take this forward. There was an initial delay, I think, because of a step of regulatory impact assessment that had been missed, which is a requirement for every policy before it goes out for implementation. And that has since been addressed. We know the value of a school health program. It addresses issues around the school environment, issues of health education, ensuring that health services are provided and children are protected, issues of physical education, counseling, guidance, and mental health. And indeed, again, the learners in the skit and video that we listened to spoke of some of these aspects and attributes, nutrition services and other extracurricular activities. And I've been briefed by colleagues from the Ministry of Education, Chief Guest, that the different levels in your ministries have already cleared this. It will soon come to your desk for the top management decision before you can forward it to Cabinet. Again, this will help contribute to and sustain the gains that we've made to enable us to go forward. So I'd like to reassure the young people, you know, that there are efforts by government for us to ensure that their best interests are taken care of and that the necessary guidelines are put in place to support both the teachers but also the learners to be able to exploit their maximum potential as they go through their education. I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Director of Basic Education. The question from one of the students was, would it be possible to make secondary education compulsory so that girls would stay in schools until they reach the appropriate age for marriage, and by then they would have acquired the appropriate level of quality education for life?
Thank you, moderator. The First Lady, Honorable Minister of Education and Sports, I request to observe the protocol as lined up in the interest of time. The question is about making secondary education compulsory. And Mama and the members, I want to share this with you and say by policy or the policies of government, this level of education, making it compulsory is implied. Why? Because we have, for example, UPE, Universal Primary Education, and secondary universal secondary education. That means there is no any Ugandan who does not have a chance to go to get secondary education. So in a way, it is already made compulsory, but Mama and the members, as you know, we're still grappling with one challenge here of making it practical and enforcing this policy so that people out there are obliged to take their children for secondary education in particular. And that's a very big missing link, and it touches basically on the parent. We need, like one of the speakers said, to prepare the mindset of the parent to take up his role. Government has done its part, and it is laying ground by making sure in every sub-county there's at least a secondary school. So there's no any excuse for anyone not to attain secondary education. So we are putting it to the parent, and we are trying our level best as a ministry to sensitize the parent, to tell him or her that your child should have a chance to get secondary education. And what we are doing here is that we are having dialogues, engaging parents, engaging different stakeholders, the religious leaders, the cultural institutions to help us sensitize the parent and also appreciate what the government has done so that the girl child gets that much needed education at that level. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not stopping at that. I've already said by the policy, making it compulsory is implied. You don't have any excuse. But we need to work out with the different stakeholders to enforce this so that the girl gets an opportunity to get this education. We are not stopping with the UPE, USE policies. We have other policies which are supporting the girl child so that she can be able to get secondary education. What are these? As you know, we have been challenged, especially during this COVID period, where many of our girls had either to drop or to fall victims to the monster of teenage pregnancy and early marriages. So what we are doing, we are coming up with some kind of guidelines to guide both our teachers, our girls, to be able to go back to school. We have HIV guidelines, we have the re-entry guidelines, and this is very critical for the girl child because it gives the girl child a second chance to be able to get secondary education. I'm emphasizing secondary education because the question was aligned to that level. But when I talk about secondary, I also talk about UPE, because it's not only the secondary education girls who are fallen victims, but even girls at lower levels, say primary, are falling victims to teenage pregnancy, early marriages, and so on and so forth. So we have all these guidelines, and the point here is to implement it, to make sure they're implemented. And we need to work with our stakeholders, the development agencies, like the UN, what they are doing now. We need to work with the cultural leaders, religious leaders, the communities, the parents. Let's take that responsibility, like we used to take in the past. A parent would not find the child loitering around on the road and does not guide him where he's supposed to be. So it's not means of education per se, it's a kind of secondary education, I wish to say, at least the lower part of it is compulsory. That one is implied by having the policy of universal secondary education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Definitely, before in any country you make something compulsory like secondary education, you need to prepare the society for it, and you need to make more and more opportunities available, which is, I believe, the ongoing process at the moment. And I think probably when the time comes, the Ministry of Education could look into the formalization of such kind of a measure. But I think at the moment, the availability of the opportunities is something very important. Let me come to you now. What experience do you want to share with us on having a second chance for adolescent girls?
Thank you so much. Am I on?
Yeah, you are on.
Thank you so much, the First Lady and Honorable Minister of Education and Sports. All protocol observed. My name is Claire Ayipo. I'm the Deputy Resident District Commissioner of Kabaramaido District. I am honored to be in this engagement today as a typical beneficiary of second chance education. It is not a coincidence, and I would really want to take this honor to thank His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for entrusting me and appointing me in that position. At the same time, I am privileged to be working in a district which is my home district. And indeed, I don't regret working in an environment where I studied from primary level, secondary level, both O and A level, then finally transiting through and benefiting from the formative action, the 1.5 added point to the girl child through the district quota system. Colleagues and members present here, as a country, we literally have all the structures and everything that it takes for us to fight and end violence against young girls and women. From my background and my experience, just like I said, that we have all the structures, we have the law enforcers, we have all the local leadership, we have the national leadership. So where are we going wrong in trying to ensure that we bring an end to what is bothering us today? First and foremost, given an environment that I studied in, which is a rural setting, if I may say, and with its challenges notwithstanding, it is clear that there is one lion that we have to fight. That is the attitude of our community towards the education of the girl child. We live in a society whereby the education of a girl child is not taken seriously, and that at the same time will see to it that no one or a few people are going to really support the cause of a girl child. When I was at school, and when I got back to school, it so happened that you'd get this part of community who are supporting your stay at school as a girl child. Then there is that other part, there is that other portion of the community which is totally in not support of your being at school as a girl child. To them, in their mind, they see the girl child as a source of wealth. Ideally, it cuts across. So if you don't get a parent or a community which is going to be resilient and stand their ground that no, we need to advocate for the education of this girl child, then that means they're going to pull you down and you're going to miss it out. I want to present this, that from my experience as someone who went back to school, of course after staying home, you realize that you're going to attract a lot of negative forces. And what do I mean? In a situation whereby a parent or your parent is not able to support you in a way of providing you with scholastic materials, providing with the basic needs, even if your fees is fully catered for, those are the basic needs that you need to keep you at school as a girl child. And I want to thank in a special way the First Lady for advocating for the provision of sanitary pads to the girl child. All of us are aware, especially the female counterparts, that if menstrual hygiene is not handled with a lot of care, it directly affects your self-esteem. And all of us know that for you to stand out in society, you need to build on your self-esteem for you to be able to do whatever you're supposed to do. So I want to thank you so much. And it is at this point that I really urge and ask, for the sake of the girl child, to be at school. Girls are faced with a lot of challenges in that area. Yes, we have free primary education, we have USE, we now have that free advanced education, but when that rural girl, when that girl doesn't have the very basics, there is no way they're going to remain at school. And that is what exposes them to all these vices. Any man is going to come to them and they'll promise them heaven and earth. They will tell them, I want to provide for you this, I'm going to buy for you books, I'm going to, and yet in the actual sense, the promises are diversionary. They're going to divert you somewhere else.
Yes.
So I want to call upon each of us, and if there is a way for the Ministry of Education to cater for this aspect of ensuring that scholastic materials and basic needs are provided to the girl child at school, I know we shall not go wrong. I know we are able and we can manage and we can fight.
Thank you very
this battle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. As a summary, I think very clearly we can see that when we talk about education, though education can be free, there are expenses associated with keeping girls in schools, which you just mentioned, school supplies and even, sanitary bags for the girls. These are important issues which represent, I would say, in some instances, significant cost item for some families. You mentioned, Honorable Minister of Gender, a change of mindsets. And one of the very impressive changes in the mindsets I have seen in Karamoja area when I visited, as well as around Arua. I saw in primary schools young boys working together with their peer girls, students, making sanitary bags for the girls. And it was a boy who stood up in front of a big crowd and showed how they make these bags and how they should be used properly. That's the change in the mindset. That's the engagement of men and women we all want to see continuing. I'm very much pleased to hear from you, Honorable Minister at Presidency, that Uganda has a structure at the district level. You have the officials who are responsible for collecting data, for monitoring pregnancies among teenage girls and reporting that. And I was very pleased to hear that sexuality education is taken seriously and it is being delivered. Definitely there are gaps, definitely there are challenges, and if there are no challenges, definitely we will be living in heaven rather than on planet Earth. And I think all of us together, we stand committed, we stand together in solidarity with all of you in your senior government positions, in solidarity with the government as the government tries to bring every child to school, keep every girl in school, and work together, all of us, to keep all girls protected for their own sake and for the sake of Uganda. Thank you very much for your time and for your interventions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Munir, the UNICEF country rep. As they take their seats, kindly accord them an applause. And we thank the young people who raised those issues. Of course, the engagement continues. This is a launch, and work begins. If any question has not been adequately addressed, we'll continue engaging. I was also reminded that the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development has not yet put out the framework, the sexuality education framework for the young people out of school. And I know that work is in progress. We have also been delayed by the nature of consultations that took place within the education sector. I personally led the engagement with the faith-based organizations and a number of other stakeholders on this sexuality education framework. And I can assure you that even that for young people out of school will be issued very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your patience. We are now getting to the final statement that is going to be made by Her Excellency, the ambassador of the United States of America to Uganda on girls' empowerment efforts. And immediately after, we'll get the statement from Mama, the First Lady, and the launch. Your Excellency, you are welcome.
Thank you. I'll follow the instructions and remove my mask. I'm fully vaccinated and boosted too, so I hope you all do the same. Honorable First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports, honorable ministers, members of Parliament, my colleagues from the diplomatic community, and other dignitaries, colleagues from the UN system, religious and faith leaders, certainly private sector partners, Mengo Secondary School, thank you for hosting us, all of our other esteemed guests, all protocols observed. I am delighted to join you today for the launch of the Education Plus initiative in Uganda. Ensuring that young people worldwide have access to quality education is a top priority for the United States government. Here in Uganda, we are committed to helping students stay in school, even when faced with challenges such as unexpected pregnancy, household demands, financial barriers, etc. The Education Plus initiative complements U.S. investments in primary education, HIV prevention with adolescents, and helping young mothers access skills training to build their economic independence and maintain their dignity. Each of us plays a role in ensuring that Uganda's children and youth are protected and empowered to become resilient, productive citizens. This includes promoting their physical and mental health and guaranteeing their safety at home and at school. We must provide equitable access to education and social support for boys and girls, and equip young people to participate constructively in their communities and in the decisions that affect them. The Education Plus initiative will support these critical objectives, using secondary education as a stepping stone to help today's young people become resilient, productive adults. Evidence shows that when children are exposed to adversity, not to mention violence, discrimination, or ridicule, and do not receive adequate support from trusted adults afterwards, they are more likely to experience a host of negative outcomes later in life. They are more likely to have poor physical health and lower economic productivity, and to struggle with depression and substance abuse. But when children have mentors and positive social support, we see the exact opposite. So even in the face of such challenges, these young people can go on to achieve great things academically, professionally, and socially. For example, girls who become pregnant but who receive mentoring, social acceptance, parental support, and continued access to education are more likely to graduate than their peers who do not receive such support. Additionally, teen parents, both boys and girls, who do not have support for their families, schools, and communities are more likely to experience severe poverty than those who do. And this poverty affects not only the teen parents themselves, but also their children, perpetuating the generational cycle of poverty. In this way, our decision to support or not to support our young people who find themselves in difficult circumstances can have consequences far beyond just the young parents involved. Recognizing that what happens in childhood and adolescence can fundamentally change the trajectory of a person's life, the United States government invests heavily in programs that promote strong foundations early in life. These include USAID's investments in early grade reading so that children can unlock the future through literacy, as well as our significant PEPFAR investments in physical health and well-being. Our PEPFAR-funded Orphans and Vulnerable Children programming strengthens families to give children a strong base from which to grow. Our DREAMS programming, which means determined, resilient, empowered, AIDS-free, mentored, and safe, helps young women bridge the critical transition from primary to secondary school. Dreams also helps adolescent girls and young women learn to plot the course they want to take in life, equipping them with knowledge, skills, and confidence to take on challenges and make healthy decisions. The power of investing in young people cannot be understated. In 2000, 2 U.S. economists won the Nobel Prize for their work in measuring how public policy can effectively influence people's decision-making and behavior. Critically, part of their research showed that public investments earlier in one's lifespan have much greater returns on investments than programs targeted as adults. Thus, if governments want to make a change, their best bet is investing in young people. So we are thrilled when opportunities like the Education Plus initiative arrive. We can truly change lives when we collaboratively pursue our mutual objectives and leverage our respective resources and knowledge. We congratulate the government of Uganda and our UN counterparts on the launch of Education Plus here in Uganda, and we look forward to working together to build a stronger, healthier future for Ugandan young people. Thank you.
Presidency, protocol demands that you come and invite Mama to address us. You're welcome.
Mama, the chief guest. The Baganda have a saying, where there is a mama, there is hope, there is light, there is life. Allow me, Mami, to call you and address your people.
Launch of the Education Plus initiative. Uganda becomes the first East African country to launch this important program, renewing our commitment as partners towards the empowerment of adolescent girls and young women to end AIDS, teenage pregnancies, early child marriages, gender-based violence, and poverty. Now, as a mother, a Minister of Education and Sports, and a UN champion for adolescent girls in Uganda, I am grateful to God to pronounce government's commitment to this initiative, co-led by 5 UN agencies, namely UNAIDS, UNFPA, UNICEF, UNESCO, and UN Women. Through this initiative, the Ministry of Education and Sports and other relevant stakeholders will indeed accelerate actions and investment for adolescent girls and young women, with boys as partners in causing positive change. This effort contributes to preventing HIV, teenage pregnancies, early child marriages and gender-based violence by increasing access to quality secondary school education as an entry point and a stepping stone to a valuable future. Keeping girls in secondary school is crucial. It is their right, of course, and it's a means of protecting them against the different challenges they face that hinder their ability to complete the education cycle. Now, because girls and their communities and the country will reap multiple social and economic benefits from the girl child's completion of secondary school education. Such benefits include reduced vulnerability to acquiring HIV, as well as protection from early marriage and teenage pregnancies, which increases their prospects for securing jobs and higher incomes as adult women. Furthermore, countries with high secondary school completion rates for girls have demonstrated a higher than 50% reduction in new HIV infections amongst adolescent girls and young women. Now, as many of you probably already know, in December 2021, during the aftermath of the severe 2020-21 COVID-19 pandemic waves in Uganda, government launched the campaign against teenage pregnancies, codenamed Protect the Girl, Save the Nation, which focuses on the prevention and management of teenage pregnancies in the school setting. Uganda also, as you heard Permanent Secretary from Ministry of Education say, Uganda also has several other policies, guidelines, and laws that promote access to education and health for adolescent girls and young women. These include the National School Health Policy, the National Strategy to End Child Marriage and Teenage Pregnancy. Additionally, there is a National Sexuality Education Framework, and then the ministry also developed the National Strategy for Girls' Education. What is important here really is to realize that all this is a concerted effort to fight for the quality of life for the girl child and young women in our country. And for girls to benefit from these policies, they must enroll in school and stay in school, at least to complete secondary education. And as you heard one of the young people ask questions there was a question that was coming to Ministry of Education in particular and saying, why don't we make secondary education compulsory to make girls stay in school? And our Director for Basic Education answered that question. But perhaps I should just add that Uganda, being a democratic country, we must recognize the role of the family. It is important for our families to play their role. And as I've said on many occasions, education is a shared responsibility. Government plays its role, and the family must play its role. That's when we will move together as a country. But also, the girl child herself has a role to play. Because in all this, we shouldn't assume that the girl has no role to play whatsoever. In the campaign that we did before for HIV and AIDS, which was also instrumental, we were educating the young people to learn to say no to any of these problems that come directly to them. We wanted the girl especially to learn to say no to any man who wants to destroy her future. And if it means running, to run from wherever they are, to access support and help, but to know as they grow that they have a role to play in their lives, so that they don't believe that other people are the ones who are going to drive their lives as they grow. So, making education compulsory can come as a decision that would be made by both government and the people themselves, the families. If the families really say, we need education to be compulsory, then government will know that they are playing both the role for the family and for the government. But right now, we as government want to see the family play its natural role, to take care of the child and to support them to get their education. Government is playing the role to make sure that they bring the school close to the family, close to the residential areas and community areas, so that children can walk to school. That's a responsibility of government. But we don't want the family to completely have no role at all to play. So that's something the child who asked that question needs to understand. We must all know that up until now, education is a shared responsibility. And presently, our national net enrollment rate for girls in secondary school is 21%. And the percentage of girls enrolled is 47.8% of the national enrollment in lower secondary schools. The transition from primary to secondary is at 68.5%. And only 1 in 3 girls complete senior 4, which is very sad. One area of concern in this regard is the health challenges adolescent girls and women face. I am particularly concerned that in 2021, 3 in 4, meaning 75% of the new HIV infections, were among young people aged 15 to 24 years. Furthermore, in Uganda, 1 in 4 adolescent girls aged 15 to 19 years have begun childbearing, hence living as teen mothers. In 2021, 18% of the annual births in Uganda resulted from teenage pregnancies, with the districts in north central Buganda, Busoga, Bunyoro, Lango, and Toro, with the West Nile region registering the highest numbers of teenage pregnancies. These statistics are not accidental. Girls face several vulnerabilities, and some people shared some of those. They enter the informal job market and shoulder unpaid care work at home, where many face gender-based violence, including harmful practices like child marriage. The videos, the dialogue, the testimonies, and young people's voices witnessed here today present the realities of our young girls' experiences. As a mother and a grandmother, listening to these statistics and voices is truly heartbreaking, since they speak to a disruption in the fulfillment of God's destiny for our young people and vulnerable children who hold the future of our nation. I'm therefore grateful that we will not relent, that we must join hands as Ugandans and friends, partners across every strata of society, and combine efforts with government to provide the safety net for these young people, which will bring hope to the affected girl and boy child by imparting values to them, protecting them from gender-based violence, and supporting their access to education and health. Together, let us ensure that not one child more becomes part of these statistics. As the older generation, this is our God-given obligation, and we must take it on. Indeed, the Bible states in Psalm 78, verses 5 to 7, in quotes, "For the Lord issued his laws to Jacob. He gave his institutions to Israel. He commanded our ancestors to teach them to their children, so that the next generation might know them, even the children not yet born, and they in turn will teach their own children." So each generation should set its hope anew on God, not forgetting his glorious miracles and obeying his commands, unquote. A nation that builds its morals and values on commandments of the Lord and instills them in the next generation has hope for a bright future. Having said that, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that any effective effort designed to empower young people must start with the family. Positive parenting, that's what we must talk and discuss with our communities. Positive parenting. Anything less than this would be addressing symptoms and not the root causes. May I also caution all stakeholders that as we implement this program and others, we should uphold Uganda's national values and ensure that these are embedded in the hearts of the younger generation. Only then can we collectively preserve the soul of our nation. As government, the Education Plus effort is critical for us to build on the momentum from initiatives such as the campaign against teenage pregnancies, which empower adolescent girls and young women to achieve gender equality and empowerment. When we reopened our schools after the long closure occasioned by the pandemic, many of our children had become victims of teenage pregnancies, early marriages, defilement, and other vices. The fierce debate that ensued was whether we allow the pregnant girls back in school or wait for them to have their babies. Various views were expressed from all sections of our society. As a ministry, we held various consultations with key stakeholders, including the mothers and women leaders, among others, and we ultimately sought guidance from the cabinet and government itself. I want to use this opportunity to inform the nation that cabinet guided on the management of teenage mothers in primary and secondary schools as follows. 1, the pregnant girl should stay out of school and first have the baby if they become pregnant. And 2, the pregnant girl should go on a mandatory leave of 1 year after giving birth before readmission to school, and this is the interest of the teen mother and the baby. This is in the interest of the teen mother and the baby she brings in the world. And 3, for candidate classes P7, S4, and S6, it is mandatory that the pregnant girl may sit for her national examination if she can. So we thank our partners who have held hands with us now in this battle, and I look forward to continued partnership with our multilateral and bilateral partners, international NGOs, and other stakeholders. While we move this agenda forward, we pledge to carry on advocacy and investment in programs that enable adolescent girls and young women to lead secure, healthy, fulfilling, and productive lives, free from gender violence, unintended pregnancies, and HIV and AIDS infections. Finally, on behalf of government, I extend our sincere gratitude to the UN family, the Uganda AIDS Commission, and all the other stakeholders for this initiative. I thank OFLA, the Ministry of Education and Sports, together with other ministries for coordinating this event and for working tirelessly to make this happen. It is now my pleasure to launch the Uganda Chapter for Education Plus initiative and to wish you Godspeed in its implementation. I thank you and God bless you all.
Mama will first. Have the anthems so that when she gets up, she doesn't have to go back where she is seated. She'll proceed to signing the dummy to ceremoniously commission or launch this initiative. And when she moves there, she's going to be joined by the following guests that we have here. The UNAIDS Regional Director will move. The UN Women Regional Director, the Ambassador of the United States of America, the Ambassador of Sweden, the ministers here present, and we have 2 of them, one for gender, for youth and children affairs, and the other from the presidency. The head teacher of Mengo will join the team, and 2 religious leaders representing the Interreligious Council, Bishop Rwere and Sheikh Waiswa. The 2 of them will join the signing. But after Mama has signed, she'll be ushered to where some photos are going to be taken. And there are only 3 such photos, and we'll guide on who joins those photos. So they'll arrange where she'll sit. There'll be 3 photos. The first team, after that photo, will stay with her. The second team will come and join behind, and I'll read out those who will join that photo. And the third team and last one, comprising the Mengo Senior School and the student representatives, will be in the final photo. There will be 3 photos. I also would have loved to join, but we will allow to be represented. So let's rise for the anthems, after which Mama will proceed to ceremoniously sign that dummy, and I'll read again those that will join her. We'll have them in the reverse order. Okay. So once again, the UN AIDS Regional Director, UN Women Regional Director, the Ambassador USA, the Ambassador Sweden, the two ministers present. The rest of you could be taking your seats. The head teacher, Mengo, the two representatives of the Interreligious Council, and they'll be joined by a student, Keith Muchivi. Muchivi has done excellently and earned himself the opportunity to join the team that will sign. After Mama has signed, each of you will proceed and sign as she takes her seat, and they arrange for the first photo. Now, those in the first photo include the ministers present, actually, that whole team should proceed straight and join the first photo. After signing, proceed into the first photo. Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education, you are signing and joining the first photo as well. Head girl Mengo Senior School, join Muchivi. So the rest of you will, who may not be able to sit, can stand behind. They'll show you where to stand for that photo. The head girl should join, sign, go and sign first. Head girl. Okay. Now, once those are done, the next group will be the ambassadors who have not been in this first photo, including the representative of the Ambassador of Ireland, the UN heads in Uganda. They'll join that photo. After the photo, remain where you are. The representatives of the students, you'll just be joined by these people who should be moving. UN representatives, UN agencies, there is Jotham, UNAIDS, the remaining religious leaders, including Madame Kasato from the Mothers Union, BIT, on behalf of the Office of the First Lady, Director General, Uganda AIDS Commission, and 2 representatives of the private sector. I'm told you are already notified, so join, just stand behind. The Deputy RDC, second chance girl, join this photo. Once they are done, wait for the Deputy RDC, who is our champion second chance lady. Yeah, this one. They'll join the last one. Okay, if we are done, all those standing can move. The ones seated will remain. I want the final photo to comprise the following from Mengo SS, led by the head teacher, followed by Mrs. Chigundu, Mrs. Senyonjo Agatha, Mrs. Bareche Dora, Mr. Sekayala Sulaiman, Mr. Setuba William, Reverend Paul Mugabi, Reverend Yungu Ezekia, Nkanji, Mpera, Nampija, Muhwezi, Jasper, Ampaire Enoch, Nyombi, Andrea, Nakatoru, Rahima, Mwanguzi, Nkarubo Ofra, Kizito Edi, Natkunda Tracy, Muhwezi, Abubakar, and what is the last? Mr. and Mrs. and Miss Y Plus. Mr. and Miss Y Plus. These represent the young positives, I'm told. So that's the final photo. And all of us are certainly represented by those 3 categories we've had. That is an opportunity of his life, so allow him. Please, are you part of the photo? You're not walking like you are. I'm told, Mama, for the record, allow only 1 photo for the guests from Namibia and Swatini. Just that last one. Those standing can now exit, and we'll have that as the last photo for our guests. You've had a lot of emphasis on networking within the region. We have a lot of lessons to share, and we are greatly honored to have these guests joining us. This is an Eastern and Southern Africa initiative. So that will be our last photo, and once again would like to thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of this historic occasion of launching the Education Plus initiative. A big applause for Mama as we appreciate her stewardship and the fact that this is another of the many initiatives of a mother of the nation to ensure that we support access and completion of education for the girl child and to address the many challenges that these people, our people, the future of our country face. Please wave to Mama as she exits. And I would like, on behalf of the organizers, our partners, the UN family, the Office of the First Lady, the Ministry of Education and Sports, the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, all of you colleagues from the ministries, departments and agencies of government that will be working together with all our partners, civil society organizations, the parents, school leaders, all of us, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for your participation, and we expect that after this launch, a lot more work awaits all of us and many that were not able to make it to this very important function. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we wish you all God's blessings as you retire, and wish you a very happy, successful commemoration of the Martyrs' Day in Uganda, and all the blessings that that brings to us all and to this country. I thank you.
Afri, Ife, Smarty.
They say close your mouth about the things going on in your area, girl. They say you're too weak, too vain to care. They say your heel's too high, your skills too low for you to know. Hey, well that's just what they say. But who is this African girl? Yeah. Who is this Ugandan girl? Tell me, who is this Nigerian girl? Yeah. Do we know, do we know, do we know? Oh, do we know, no, no. I've got a future and a dream. I've got a future and a dream. It's more than what your eyes can see. It's more than what your eyes can see. Give me the chance to reach my destiny. And be more, 'cause I know I am this African girl. Oh yes, I am this Ugandan girl. Oh now I am this African girl. Yeah, now you know, now you know, now you know. So now you know, now you know. See, you know I want to be. And I'm gonna make my ABC. Oh, how I long to be more than anything. We're more than everything. Oh, just let me be.
À la femme, la fille, la mère et la reine, celles qui sont bien loin de nos lycées et nos collèges. Rien comme Afri, Daïfé, dans nos contrées, je vois les mêmes prisonnières sans éducation, les victimes des mêmes pièges. Ramener nos femmes et filles sur les bancs d'une Afrique qui éduque. Où sont les hommes chantant les cantiques, les profs de cette lutte? Je vois des mâles convaincus, je vois des hommes engagés, je vois des flammes dans nos rues, je vois des femmes diplômées. Éduquer une femme, c'est fabriquer les pères de demain. Éduquer une fille, c'est éviter des drames sans fin. L'agenda n'a pas changé, ça reste le vœu 63. Pour toutes les filles de ce monde, faut y mettre toute notre foi. Je suis la Sud-Afrique, le Congo et le Tchad. Yeah. Tunisie, l'Égypte et le Maroc. Je suis la fille mauritanienne de l'Ouganda, du Rwanda, Éthiopie, de la Tanzanie. Zambie, Burkina Faso. Je suis la jeune fille de la Côte d'Ivoire. Guinée équatoriale, l'île Maurice, Madagascar.
Africa educates her. The agenda is still the same. Agenda 2063.